This is Robin Whiskey JQ from the Science Center. Hi everyone, I'm Robin Sewell and welcome to Arizona Highways Television.
Today, we're conducting a few science and communication experiments.
We're going to start and we're going to use your first name.
I'm a little technologically behind,
That won't
so
be
I'm
a
just
problem
letting
at
you
all.
know. So this
Okay.
may be a challenge for you.
All right. We work from 3 years and up. Below 3 years, they just push the button and make noise.
If you want to relax, just put them on the yellow ones. And are you ready?
Relax, I'm not even going to let go.
Sometimes I feel like I've just joined a circus or a magic act.
Please remain flat on your back until the nails are lowered. That was freaky.
Oh, right.
What we wanted him to see, and that's a rustic hunting lodge. That's what he wanted, and that's what he built.
Novelist ZANE had a love affair with Arizona, then a bitter breakup. We'll take you back to the early 20th century to see what sparked the romance. Then we'll head down the mountain for a little adventure and ride some radio waves.
We are doing a story for Arizona Highways Television on your fantastic Arizona Science Center.
Half a million guests visit the Arizona Science Center every year. During our visit, hundreds of kids from several dozen schools pack the center in downtown Phoenix. Various ages, backgrounds, ethnicities, and beliefs, all brought together by science.
Yeah!
And an eagerness to learn.
I do need 2 volunteers.
You can take part in science experiments. Hear and experience how our bodies work on the inside by walking through a giant's stomach. Here, there are no ya break it, ya buy it rules. The Forces of Nature exhibit lets you immerse yourself to actually hear and feel thunder and lightning, a volcanic eruption, or a monsoon. Experience the Earth and different weather phenomenons like you never have before. And you can get an electrifying experience with the new Tesla coil exhibit. This is the Science Center's newest exhibit and features one of Nikola Tesla's more notable inventions. It's a high-voltage transformer circuit that when turned on, you can see and hear the sparks fly. Then you can test gravity by taking a test drive in midair.
So, if you've ever thought about running away and joining the circus, you may want to give this a test drive first. It's kind of like a high wire act and physics combined, sort of. When I'm out there, I will be nearly 50 feet above the ground, and that cable is 90 feet long. And Tanita promises me, right, you promised,
Yes.
that I will not fall. Although Tanita also said to me, this is how she described it, she said, it's terrifying. Oh, but lots of fun.
Yes.
All right, well, let's give it a try.
Alrighty.
I'm riding the Evans Family Sky Cycle, which is all about balance and gravity.
You know what they say? It's just like riding a bike.
That pendulum acts as a counterweight, so no matter which way I shift my balance, I won't fall.
Wow. Oh, I wish I hadn't had lunch right before I got on the bike.
And you won't get hurt by this bed of nails either. It's one of the center's most popular exhibits.
Some people would call it mind over matter. Others would say you'd have to be hypnotized before you would walk over fire or lay down on a bed of nails. But the people here at the Science Center assure me that the more nails, the merrier. I've trusted them so far. Let's see if they are right. Please remain flat on your back until the nails are lowered. Ooh. It kind of tickles. I feel like I'm in a magic act. Ladies and gentlemen, can you believe that she just laid down on a bed of nails? Don't do this at home.
But we do encourage you to come here and find out for yourself what it's like to
I feel like I conquered my fear of heights there. That was freaky.
Whoa, right?
And let your curiosity and imagination run wild.
This is the story of two brothers who came here and did absolutely extraordinary things.
Take a look at this building. It clings to the edge of the south rim of the Grand Canyon. Perhaps it is only fitting then that the Cole brothers, Ellsworth and Emery, who lived and worked here, were on the cutting edge too.
When the Cole brothers came here in 1901, Ellsworth came in with the railroad.
A year later, Ellsworth, brash and adventurous, sent for his younger, more conservative brother Emery. Together they bought photography equipment and set up shop, at first in a tent. Then they built a 2-story wooden structure at the Bright Angel Trailhead, a place where they lived and worked. In the beginning, the Colbs made a living taking pictures of the wondrous Grand Canyon. They were daring. Nothing was ever too dangerous to shoot. In this room with the small window carved out the side, the Colbs could shoot photos of the mule-riding tourists going down the canyon, then develop the pictures and sell them to the tourists when they came back up the canyon. In 1912, the brothers, like the rest of the world, were bowled over by moving pictures. So they decided to shoot film of a boat trip down the Colorado. However, neither one of them had ever run the rapids of the mighty river, and neither one of them had ever shot movie film.
The movie was what made these guys, because it was like the IMAX of its time. So when they came out with these movies, I mean, Charlie Chaplin made his first movie in 1914, to give you some context. So this movie was a really, really big deal.
Ever heard that saying, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger? That bit of logic seemed to work for the Colbs, whose daring adventure made headlines around the world.
When they completed their big trip in January 1912, they wanted to basically take a local building here, a Forest Service building, and use it as an auditorium to show the public their movies and their pictures. The Forest Service was not willing to give the Cole brothers a facility. So the Cole brothers, thinking local, decided to go national. So 1912, 1913, 1914, the winters thereof, they go back east to Washington and Baltimore and Philadelphia and New York and Boston, and they show their movies, their pictures, and they become national figures. And so much so, as we indicated, that the National Geographic published an issue about the Cole brothers in August of 1914.
With every bit of success, the Kolb house and studio got bigger with more additions, including a small new auditorium where Emery lectured and showed the film. But the brothers had two very different personalities and often clashed with one another. The end result was Ellsworth and Emery came to a financial agreement and split up. Ellsworth moved to Los Angeles and Emery stayed behind, continuing to show his film to tourists. By now, there were other additions to the Kolb house. It had a living area for Emery's wife and little girl.
When the National Park Service came here in 1919, they were only 3 years old. And these Cole brothers were national figures. So there's no way the National Park Service was kicking these guys out.
Emery Kolb fought a long battle with the Park Service, who wanted to get rid of the Kolb house. Emery finally agreed to sell it to them, but with provisions that he would live there until his death. Through the years, Emery told his story, changing his role with the times.
In the 1950s and the 60s and 70s, what became a big deal at the bottom of Grand Canyon? River running. Emery was more than glad to play the role of one of the original pioneers here, the river runner. So in the 50s and 60s and 70s, it was basically people coming here to see living history called Emery Kolb.
Arizona Highways Television is brought to you by Arizona Public Service and the Arizona Office of Tourism. My Digital World is another permanent exhibit here at the Arizona Science Center. It's where you can experience how communication has evolved, from simple dots and dashes to technology you thought only existed in science fiction.
In our world, technology is going at lightning speed. You buy a cell phone one day and the next day it's obsolete. So I find it so fascinating that we still have technology like ham radio and Morse code, and it's still being used today, and you guys are kind of the experts here.
Well, we try to be. We are licensed radio operators, and you're correct that amateur radio has been around a long time, but it has grown, it has changed. We use a lot of the same digital techniques that your cell phones do. They're simply radios working in the digital spectrum.
With more than 740,000 operators across the U.S., ham radio is a huge hobby, but it also provides a valuable public service. When cell phones won't work, the amateur radio system will, especially in a disaster. Steve says that each operator is ready to mobilize at a moment's notice. When Hurricane Maria knocked out power for months in Puerto Rico, APS and ham radio operators were there to answer their calls for help.
We don't have to roll a truck from somewhere. We don't have to get a budget signed. If we have our automobile battery, a piece of wire, and a radio, we have a communication system.
Can you teach me?
We certainly can. Have
All
a
right.
seat.
Should we do Morse code
We'll do it
first?
just like we do with our
Okay.
younger visitors and do Morse code. Okay.
All right.
So we're going to start, and we're going to use your first name. In this
Okay.
case, your first letters are, that's got a nickname of
So
dot
dot
dash
dash dot.
dot. And then
Dot
the other
dash dot.
letters. So we're going to send these with the dot being as short as we can send it. And I'll point, you send.
Okay. Is that pretty good?
Very good job.
Morse code was developed and has been used since the mid-1800s.
And at that time, that was called the telegraph. The person who did it was a telegrapher.
This is more difficult than learning a foreign language.
Well, it essentially is a language.
So how about ham radio?
Okay, well,
Is there anyone we can talk to?
we can. Let's step over here to
I'd like
the
to see
side.
how that works.
With these high-frequency radios, we can communicate with anyone in the world.
It's like walking out your front door and yelling hello.
Okay.
You don't know if anybody's there or not, and if they are there, you don't know if they will respond or not. This is W7ASC, Whiskey 7, Alpha Sierra Charlie. Is anybody listening? Over.
This is Kilo Foxtrot 7 Romeo Mike, KF7RM. My name is Matt.
Thanks for coming back, Matt. This is Steve at the mic. I'm at the Arizona Science Center, and I've got one of our visitors here, and I'm going to pass the microphone to her, and she'll tell you her name and have a QSO with you.
That's radio speak for conversation.
This is Robin Whiskey JQ from the Science Center. I just made that up. That's really not my code name. How are you today?
I am just peachy. I just got back from having coffee and bagel with a friend, and I'm sitting here getting ready to do some housework.
And just like that, I traveled across Arizona's radio waves.
I learned a lot about
thank you
this
very much
today.
for
Thank
coming
you,
down.
Steve. It was a lot of fun. I'm going to become an amateur radio operator.
If you ever see that spot out there, you'll know why he built it. It's the most beautiful view. One way you're looking at the Mogollon Rim, which he called the Tonto Rim, and you turn around and you see the beautiful Montezal Mountains.
Tales of Lonely Trails, Zane Grey, 1918. Next day, we rode from the Natural Bridge to Payson in 4.5 hours. Payson, which appeared to be an old hamlet, retaining many frontier characteristics.
It was after a visit to the Grand Canyon when Zane Grey's passion for his beloved Arizona began a writing career spanning more than 60 American Western bestsellers.
He wrote 64 novels in total, but 23 of them were about Arizona. That shows how much he cared about this place.
Dick WOLFE is the president of the Zane Grey Cabin Foundation.
Everything that in his cabin, everything that was, all the building materials was hauled up by horse and mule. Zane Grey wouldn't let him build a road. He didn't want tourists coming up there. After he built his cabin, he was here every fall during the hunting season, clear up until 1929. He had a great love of hunting and fishing, and he just loved to write about the West, so he can't do that from a New York dentist's office.
And then he stopped coming to Arizona altogether.
1929, he got crossways with the Game and Fish Commission because he wanted to shoot a documentary about bear hunting, and the season had changed. So he appealed to the governor, he appealed to the Game and Fish Commissioner, and they held a hearing, and would not yield, would not let him do it. And he got very angry. He did have a short temper. And he left Arizona and vowed never to return, and he never did.
Gray died in 1939 at age 67, and his cabin fell into disrepair. It was eventually restored, but sadly burned to the ground in the 1990 Dude Fire.
We wanted a place to house the historic artifacts of Zane Grey and take advantage of his name, which is still magical worldwide.
So the Zane Grey Cabin Foundation formed to build an historic replica here in Green Valley Park.
The piano is original. The saddle over by the front door is original.
And of course, there's a replica of his writing chair.
Zane Grey was very descriptive in his writing. And if you lived here for any length of time, you can read his book, and all of a sudden it dawns on you, I know exactly what he's talking about, where he's talking about. These are exciting books to read. I don't care how old you are.
Have you ever noticed that those places in our state that dramatically shoot up and plunge down have some strange names? These are the Mule Mountains, but there's also Hell's Canyon and Weaver's Needle. One of my favorites is Tom's Summit. It is a great place to mountain bike. But if you're going to do so, you better wrap those 10 fingers tightly around the handlebars.
The bikers tend to go by quickly. It's a beautiful trailhead. My name is Susan Larson. I'm a steward in the McDowells.
Perched in the McDowell Sonoran Preserve, the biking trails around Tom's Thumb are a good 1,000 feet higher than most of the Phoenix Metro.
Mountain biking in the McDowell Mountain Preserves is one of the greatest places because of the variety that you can get and different types of rides and trails. If you want to do stuff that's steep, you can do that. You can do flat and easy. You can do rocky and fast.
Whichever trail you choose, be aware you're never really alone out there.
I know there's coyotes. I haven't seen them. And we have snakes. And we have a Gila monster that lives under the bridge up there.
Views abound. Four Peaks, the Superstition Mountains, and most of all, the weird boulders, which can add challenges to the trails. But once you're out there on just two wheels, I'd advise spending at least as much time looking down as you do looking up. It's a lesson that new riders like RENEE KEATY have learned the hard way.
Well, I've only been riding for about the last year, and it has been very challenging. The first part of the year, I think I've had quite a few crashes. I was one each time I went out for a ride. You just have to keep going and stick with it and learn the terrain. The gravel is a big challenge, I think, out here in Arizona versus just the dirt.
The Sonoran Southwest is known for decomposing granite, and it gives a layer of, the best way to describe it is kitty litter. And it covers the trail, and it can be quite intense and slippery at times. You got to really watch yourself coming into corners for traction because it's easy to slip out and lose a wheel and slide to the ground.
And it takes some guts to ride over those ruts.
When it rains, you've got the grooves in the terrain. And so when you hit that, it definitely can kick your bike off your wheels, and that can definitely put you head over heels. It's definitely a workout. You've got the uphill and the downhill, so both of it is challenging, I think, for a new rider, as far as just learning how to stay upright, and the physicalness and just your cardio has been a new challenge for me.
You know, I've taken plenty of spills out here, and I've actually narrowly escaped a bunch as well. Most recently, I had to jump over a cholla cactus, and in mid-flight, I thought I was going to make it over, only to find out when I landed, it caught me on the back of my leg. I've got about 500 spines from the cactus still in my leg as a forever tattoo reminder. Some of the harder trails out here will certainly test you physically. You know, you got the endurance factor, riding for a long time at a very intense pace, which gets your heart rate up, and really can challenge you. And you also have technical downhills that could have steep drop-offs, and if you make a mistake, can have cactus consequences.
And there are some unique hazards out there related to the unusual geography of the Tom's Thumb area. Scientists say this is where Arizona's second biggest rock slide happened. But don't worry, that was about 500,000 years ago. So what's the one mountain biking trick you need to learn out here to keep your adventure all thrills and no spills? Craig shows us the bunny hop.
Gonna hit a short uphill followed by a small granite obstacle. Here's how we would approach it. Pick the front wheel, lift the back, up and over. Just that easy.
Oh, and we should mention another challenge you can't see. It can be windy.
Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm totally fine. I caught.
All that mountain biking is making Renee one tough lady. Arizona Highways Television is brought to you by Arizona Public Service and the Arizona Office of Tourism.
I feel like I am in the circus. I feel like I'm in a magic act.
At the Arizona Science Center in downtown Phoenix, you can dare to ride the high wire, lie on a bed of nails, even play tug of war. Here, you are actually encouraged to get your hands dirty.
This is more difficult than learning a foreign language.
Well, it essentially is a language.
You'll learn how older technology is still relevant and how it's still sparking imaginations today. Whether moving forward or taking a step back in time, Arizona's highways are paving the journey.
Thanks everyone so much for joining us. I'm Robin Sewell, and we'll see you on the next Arizona Highways.